This challenge was so incredibly difficult. Every month, Integrity hosts a challenge, and August was obviously no different. This month's challenge was created by Bruno Modificato and ASZX87410, and this was an XSS challenge where the goal is to get an alert to pop up. Now, if you are able to do that, then you have a chance at winning some swag. We're giving up to 300 euros of it away. So, I want to get into this challenge right now, but if you haven't checked it out already, then be sure to do so at this link right here. And if you never want to miss these challenges in the future so that you have a chance at winning that swag, then be sure to follow us on Twitter at Integrity. But right now, we can finally go and check out this challenge. As always, we first have the main page where you can see all the details for this challenge. But in this case, let's skip straight ahead to the challenge page, which looks like this and is a business card generator. It asks us for our nickname, well, mine is Pink Draconian, and then we can start. Now it says, well, your name is Pink Draconian, your description is, hi, nice to meet you, this is my favorite video. And then we have a theme. We can update our theme. So for example, if I want the background color for dark to be just black, then I guess I could update that to black. Update it, okay. And then we can also preview our business card. Upon clicking that, it says that this website is still in beta, but we can still do it and check it out. So in this case, we have our business card. If we go to dark mode, we see that the background is black like we supplied. So that is good. That is great because we're doing something with CSS here. Very interesting. But we also see that our YouTube link here, this embed, has become a real embed. It's not just a link. So let's quickly inspect here to see what has happened. And if I do that and I zoom in, we can see that this became an iframe. So that is some interesting functionality. So right now, we also see that this name and description is obviously reflected on this page. So there's a couple of interesting things to look into here, which is our name and description being reflected, the fact that we can change the CSS using this theme, and the fact that our links seem to be put into an iframe of some sort. But before we get into checking out one of these things, there is another very important thing that we've missed so far, and that is this bottom footer, because it says created with love by our creators, and then get the source code. And this is a link, which when we go there, we get the source code in a zip file. And that is very interesting because having the source code in these kind of challenges totally changes it. It's not a black box anymore, but it's a white box because we can see exactly what this backend is going to do. We don't need to guess anything anymore. So having this source code changes everything. In this video, I'm not going to go through all the files in the source code because that is just not of interest, but I'm going to look at one specific functionality, and that is the functionality of having your links being changed to an iframe. I want to see how that works in the source code, and that is going to happen in the preview.php file. If we scroll down here, we see that we have our description, which is first being sanitized. Then our description is doing a replace. It's finding all of the YouTube links and replacing that with an iframe where the source is that YouTube link. And then still it's doing another replace on that, which is finding all the images, JPEGs, GIFs, and replacing that with an actual image tag. And this is all very interesting, but I don't immediately see an issue with this. And in this case, one thing that you should notice is that you've maybe been told a lie for your whole entire life, because everybody has been told that you should always sanitize your user input in order to be secure. What if I told you that that is not true? Because you shouldn't sanitize your user input, you should sanitize your user output. And I'll show you exactly what I mean with that. Because I've taken these three lines and I've gone into this online place where I can execute some PHP. I've just pasted these lines here and entered echoes in between them. So right now, if I execute this code, we can see this is my description. First get sanitized. It's still, this is my description. Then after replace, it's still the same, and so on. But now if I obviously try to do some XSS, some really simple XSS, like an image with source X and an on error, of alert, then that shouldn't work because it's being sanitized. And that is true. We get this, it's being sanitized. That doesn't work. Now, obviously, that is expected, but there is this replacing functionality. So let's try to enter a YouTube link here, for example. So www.youtube.com/embed/test. What happens if we execute this? Well, now we get in the first line, our sanitization is still the same. So now that is all still the same, works fine. But then when it's converted into an iframe, well, we get this iframe. And after we got the iframe, it is still replaced one more time. It tries to find an image in there. It doesn't, but it tries to, it returns the same line. But what if my link here is also an image? So right now it's youtube.com/embed/test. What if I make this embed/test.png? Right now we see something very interesting happen at the bottom here. We see that my iframe has a source of an image tag with another quote here. And remember, quotes are really hard to get because if I just enter a quote right here, it will, well, become this quote. So we actually kind of generated a character that we shouldn't be allowed to generate here right there. And that's a very interesting thing because this is not at all valid HTML. If I try to view this, you see that it becomes an error because our source is literally the opening of an image tag. And well, the opening of an image tag is not really a valid source. But after this, all of this junk remains within our tag. But we've kind of escaped the attribute here. And that is something that should not be possible. We shouldn't have been allowed to escape the attribute. We cannot escape our iframe and just start writing some scripts here, but we have escaped the attribute and we could inject a different attribute. For example, if we wrote this as name equals key and we run that, now we see that if we go and view this, we see that something interesting is happening here with name being key. This key is in a different color now. There's something going on here. We don't fully know what yet, but it seems like we can inject attributes like we wish. And we can verify that by inspecting elements here and by seeing that indeed name is an attribute and key.php. The key.png rather is the value. So we are able to inject random attributes into this iframe, anything we want. Now, what is the logical next step? I'm going to look for any interesting attributes that an iframe tag may take. So in W3 schools, there is a list of attributes and most of these are fairly boring. But then we get to the source doc attribute. And this says that as a value, it takes HTML code. And what does the source doc do? Well, it specifies the HTML content of the page to show in the iframe. Okay, very interesting, because now if I go here and I change my name to source doc and I change my key.png to an h1 of test, I can execute that. This is the result of it. We see that that h1 tag is being sanitized. But if I try to view that, it still works. It still shows the PNG because obviously it's expected that in the source doc things might be sanitized. So that still works perfectly fine. Very, very interesting. Can I now do something as easy as just having a script in there, like so? Script tag, alert, close the script tag. Will that maybe work? Well, let's try it out. Let's execute that and now copy all of this. And that does work. We have a script here. That is amazing. So since that worked here, we can also see if that works on our challenge page. So we're just gonna copy our description, and this is what should hopefully give us an easy XSS on this challenge page. Let's preview this, and we see that our H1 got shown as an H1, but we don't get our alert. What is going on here? And going into the inspect elements and to the console, it shows the issue. And it is once again a content security policy, a CSP that is messing us up and not allowing us to get this easy XSS. So that is clearly the next part that we need to look into. We have to go and bypass this CSP. And this is going to get really hard, really fast, so pay close attention. So, okay, a content security policy is blocking us from doing what we want to do. Let's take a look at this content security policy in specific. So I'm just going to resend a request and look at the headers, and then we find the CSP. This is a bit small, I know, but I'll quickly put that into the content security policy validator by Google so we can check this CSP. And we see that most of the things are all right, except for the script source. Why is that? Well, our script source, it contains cdnjs.cloudflare.com/ax/libs. And that is known to host Angular libraries, which allow the bypass of this CSP. And that is very true. We have seen that in previous challenges, and we've actually used this bypass in previous challenges. And if you couldn't find it, you can just, for example, go to Hacktricks and find a content security policy bypass. And if we scroll all the way down somewhere here, there are some. This one is a popular one where we load prototype.js, then the vulnerable version of angular.js, and then we can do an on.curry.call, and then call whatever we want, for example, run or alert that we want. So I took this into here, and now we can make this our payload and see if this works and bypasses our CSP. That would be amazing. So I have all of this here. I'm gonna quickly go and remove these enters here. Okay, now I am gonna go and quickly remove spaces with a slash. That works in JavaScript or in HTML rather, and it makes it way more resistant to whatever the backend may do with it. So it's better if we use these slashes here. Do I need to change anything else? Yes, I need to wrap this in our URL, because that is how this is going to become the source doc of an iframe. And this should be our payload. So let me copy this and go back to our challenge. And now I can paste that into our description and preview this. And it said, dangerous word detected. What is that? Why is it saying that? Well, we can check out the source code, of course. And in the source code, we can see something that you don't like to see. And that is this array containing dangerous words. And these are words that we are not allowed to use, such as eval, set timeout, set interval, function, constructor, proto, on, and some characters. Now, what are we hitting against? Well, we're hitting against that proto because, well, we're loading in prototype. So we have to use the word proto here, and there's no real way around it. So what do we do in this case? Well, maybe we need to understand why this prototype is actually needed to be imported. And if we understand that, then we can potentially go and look into how to bypass this or how to find another library that we can use or whatever. So first of all, prototype, what is it? Well, it's just a library. And do we really need it? Well, yes, because this curry method is in there. But why do we need this curry method? Why do we need to do an onCurry.call of alert1? Well, that is because there is something called the Angular sandbox. And this sandbox, you can read more about it on a Portswigger page as here, but the sandbox is a mechanism that prevents access to potentially dangerous objects such as window or document. And in this case, we need our window to execute our alert. So the Angular sandbox is preventing us from doing that within these brackets here. And that is why we need prototype. Now, what does prototype give us that allows us to get to window? I will show you by going to the source code here. In the source code, we have the curry function right here. And if we look up top here, we can see that we are extending the prototype of function with this specific curry function. So that has extended the prototype. That is special about this curry function, but the other thing that is special and that we really need is the fact that it returns window. Now, why does it return window? Well, if we don't supply any arguments, it's going to return this. Now, if this is the function.prototype, it will return window. That was explained quite quickly and maybe not that very clear. And that is because this is just a very difficult topic to explain. And if you're not going to play around with it yourself, you are probably not going to fully understand it. So definitely take a break here and play around with this yourself so you can see it. But the next part can make it even more clear, because right now we know some things that we need to have. First of all, we need to have something that extends the prototype. So a library that extends the prototype and a library that has a function that is extended in the prototype and that returns window. Now, we could write a script that does this for us. For example, right here, there is an HTML page here that is going to do a couple of things. First of all, it's going to run this script. And this script is going to get the current prototype and look at all the functions that are in the current prototype. Why are we doing that? Well, we are doing that because next up, we are loading in a script. In this case, the prototype script. Then what we can do is we can check for all the new prototypes. So we're going to get all the prototype functions again, but then we can check which ones were there previously and which ones weren't. And those ones that weren't are new. So that means that this script added those to the prototype, and that is exactly what we need. Next up, we obviously also need to check if they return a window, and that is something that we do at the bottom here. If our prototype function name.call equals window, then we add it to an array here as well, and then we can print out the result, and I will show you exactly what this looks like for our function here. So if I reload, we can see that we get functions returning window. So in prototype, there are three functions returning window, which is clear, times, and curry. And then we also have the prototype functions, and in this case, prototype has a lot of them, 77. And in here, we can also find curry, and that is perfect. So curry is in there and in there. So it means curry returns window and curry is added to the prototype. So it will return window if we call it without any arguments on any function. That may sound really crazy, and it's about to get even more crazy, but that's kind of the whole principle behind how this specific CSP bypass works. But like I said, we cannot use the prototype library because the word proto is blocked, and sadly that is in our prototype library name. So we need to find a different library. So what did I do? Well, there is this list on CDN.js that lists all the 4,290 libraries. As you can see here, it lists all of them. We can check for all these libraries if they have extended the prototype and if they return window. Now, obviously, we're not going to manually copy these links. We're going to do this automated. So I've also found an API for CDN.js. And here at the /libraries endpoint, we can get all of the libraries. I've put that all in a disgusting Python script, which is going to, first of all, open our prototype.html. So read this file. Then it's going to make a request to the API. Then it's going to make a request to the API, get all of the URLs for all of the libraries. Then it's going to loop over all of the libraries and open a Selenium browser, so a headless browser that opens up this page with our script loaded. And then it's then going to get the log. And then if we return something right here, so if there is some data right here, then it's going to print that out so we can take a look at that. And that is a script that takes a long time to run, so I've already ran it here, as you can see, and it prints out a lot of next, so a lot of libraries don't work. I still have missed some filtering here, some errors are coming up, that's fine, we'll see a bunch of that here. As you can see, we can just skip over all of these because it's a lot of output and it took a long while to run. But then at some point we get to some prototype stuff, so that seems cool. We have the Opal library here that might work. I tried this one out. It didn't work because it overwrote some other function name that Angular needed, and I didn't want to mess around with that. I just left this script running, and in the end it found a different one, which was, well, the prototype library, which we obviously also don't need because we already know that that is being blocked. So I kept on running this script, and in the end we came across one more, the MooTools library. I had never heard of this one, but yeah, we could give this one a go. I also kept running the script, but then I just stopped it because I was scared of getting banned for brute forcing it this way, which didn't happen, so that's great. So, but let's try it out with this specific library, the MooTools one. So I'm just gonna go back to my prototype.html and just gonna put that in there and run it again. So now we can see what functions we may have to work with. So we can see that there are a couple of functions returning window, erase, empty, extend, and so on. And there are also a bunch of prototype functions. And in this case, I'm going to look for one that is in both. I'm just doing this manually. You could also script this, but I am too lazy for that, perhaps. But if we look at one of these, for example, if we look at the empty one, can we find empty here once more? All right, so we have empty here in the functions that return window, and we have empty here in the prototype function. So array.prototype.empty is a function, and it returns window. So let's use that one. And I've done that here. So here I imported the script MooTools. I then import the script angular.js. Then we get our array.empty because, well, empty is a function in the prototype of array, so we can call that this way. We then call that with .call. That will return the window because we know it does that. Then we call alert on the window of, well, again, our array.empty.call document.domain. And that is hopefully something that please bypasses our CSP. I again removed all the enters, put in slashes for spaces, and put that into our source doc way of the way that we have running our scripts on this challenge page. I'm gonna paste that in, press preview, and wow, we get an alert here. That is amazing. We have found a bypass for this specific CSP, but there is one issue. How will we use this on somebody to get an XSS going? Because right now we manually have to paste this into our description, and it is not a get parameter, so we cannot create a link that gets an XSS, and we obviously also cannot tell our victim to, hey, go and paste this suspicious string into description. That is not something that really works, hence why this is called a self-XSS. Now, self-XSSs are incredibly annoying to deal with because that means that you have an XSS but you're not done yet. You need a way to make it not a self-XSS, and that can be very difficult, and that is obviously the next part of this challenge. But this video is already a little bit too long, and I don't have time to go into all of the rest of this challenge because there's a lot more to come. So that's why I'm making this part 1 of the video, and next week part 2 of this challenge will be released. So maybe this is a great opportunity for you to take some time and process what has happened here. Do you fully understand the CSP bypass? Do you know why this works? And, well, you can also take some time in trying to solve the second part of this challenge. How could you not make this a self-XSS? I'm gonna leave all of that to you. So that was it for this video. If you liked it, then press that like button. If you wanna tell us something in the comments, then please do. I love chatting with you guys down there. Ask me any questions, anything you want to know, and I'll happily answer. But this is all for now, and I will see you back next week for the second part of this challenge.